Emily had always thought she had everything figured out. She had a successful career, a loving partner, and a comfortable lifestyle. But one day, she woke up and realized that she felt lost. She didn't know what she wanted from life or where she was going. And the more she searched for answers, the more questions seemed to arise. One day, Emily stumbled upon a book called Tiny Beautiful Things by Cheryl Strayed. She was intrigued by the title and decided to give it a read. As she delved into the pages, she realized that this book was different from any other self-help book she had ever read. Instead of giving her easy answers, it made her confront her own experiences and find her own solutions. As Emily read on, she discovered that no one has all the right answers in life, not even the author of the book. But what we do have is our own experiences and the advice of those around us. She learned about self-realization, acceptance, forgiveness, resilience, desperation, and redemption. These were the key factors that went into making appropriate decisions in life. Through the pages of the book, Emily found herself taking a journey through the different stages of life. She encountered difficulties, but also discovered the beauty that was hidden in unexpected places. With each turn of the page, Emily found herself growing and learning more about herself. She began to see that the answers she was searching for were not external, but rather, they lay within herself. And with that realization, Emily set out on a new path, feeling more confident and empowered than ever before. So, if you ever find yourself feeling lost in life, don't despair. Just like Emily, you too can find your way through the difficulties and beauty of the different stages of life. All you need is an open mind, a willingness to learn, and the right guidance. Let's dive in and explore the beauty of life's journey together. Chapter 1. Caitlin had always been a worrier, but her fears had taken a new form after her father was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Her mind would spin with thoughts of losing her dad, of facing a future without him. She'd cry herself to sleep at night and struggle to get out of bed in the morning. Her mother had suggested she reach out to Cheryl Strayed's Dear Sugar column for advice. Caitlin was skeptical at first, but something about the way Strayed approached difficult topics made her feel hopeful. Caitlin poured out her heart in a letter, explaining how she felt like she was living in constant fear. She was scared of the future, scared of losing her dad, scared of not being able to cope with the pain. When Strayed's response arrived, Caitlin was surprised by how direct it was. The first sentence read, "Your father is going to die. You cannot change that." At first, the words felt harsh, but as Caitlin read on, she realized that Strayed wasn't being cruel. She was simply stating a fact. Caitlin couldn't change the inevitable, but she could change the way she approached it. Strayed's advice was simple: to live in the present moment. Caitlin couldn't control the future, but she could enjoy the time she had left with her father. She could make memories, tell him how much she loved him, and cherish the moments they had together. It wasn't easy, but Caitlin took Strayed's words to heart. She started spending more time with her dad, taking him out for walks, cooking his favorite meals, and talking to him about everything and nothing. And as she did, she found that her fears started to recede. It wasn't that Caitlin stopped worrying altogether. She still felt scared and uncertain at times, but she learned that she could live with those feelings. They didn't have to control her. When her father passed away, Caitlin was devastated. But she also felt a sense of peace, knowing that she'd made the most of their time together. She was grateful for the memories they'd created and the love they'd shared. In the end, Caitlin realized that Strayed had been right. Life is unpredictable and full of pain, but it's also beautiful and full of joy. And when we face our fears and live in the present moment, we can find a way to navigate the ups and downs. Chapter 2. Sophie had always been a romantic at heart. She dreamed of meeting the love of her life, settling down, and starting a family. But life had a funny way of throwing curveballs at her. Sophie had just turned 30, and her love life was in shambles. She had been in a string of failed relationships, each one leaving her more heartbroken than the last. She couldn't understand what she was doing wrong, and she felt like she was running out of time. One day, as she was scrolling through her social media feed, she came across an article written by an advice columnist named Cheryl Strayed. The article talked about the importance of realizing who you are and what you want in life before pursuing love. Sophie was intrigued. She had never thought about love in that way before. She realized that she had been so focused on finding someone to love her that she had forgotten to love herself first. She started reading more of Strayed's articles and books, and she found herself becoming more and more inspired by her words. She began to see that the key to finding love was not in trying to please others or meet their expectations, but in being true to yourself. Sophie started to make changes in her life. She quit her job and started her own business, something she had always dreamed of doing. She took up new hobbies and reconnected with old friends. She started to focus on the things that made her happy, rather than what others thought she should do. As she began to love herself more, she found that love started to come to her naturally. She met a man named Jack, who shared her love of travel and adventure. They fell in love quickly, and for the first time in her life, Sophie felt like she had found someone who truly understood her. But their love was not without its challenges. Jack had a rare blood disorder that caused physical deformities, and Sophie knew that there would be people who would judge him based on his appearance. But she also knew that true love was not about what someone looked like, but about who they were on the inside. Sophie and Jack's relationship was put to the test when they decided to go on a backpacking trip through Europe. They faced numerous obstacles along the way, from lost luggage to missed trains, but they also had some of the most magical moments of their lives. It was during this trip that Sophie came to a realization. She loved Jack more than anything in the world, but she also knew that there were things she wanted to do with her life that would take her away from him. She didn't want to hurt him, but she knew that staying with him out of guilt would only lead to resentment in the long run. Sophie realized that love was not always easy, but it was always worth fighting for. She knew that she and Jack might not end up together forever, but she was grateful for the time they had together and the lessons they had taught each other. As Sophie boarded the plane back home, she knew that she was not the same person she had been when she had left. She had learned to love herself, to trust her instincts, and to appreciate the beauty in the world around her. She didn't know what the future held, but she was excited to find out. Chapter 3. Maggie had always been a strong and independent woman. She had never let anyone hold her back, and she was proud of the life she had built for herself. But one day, everything changed. Maggie's mother had passed away suddenly, leaving her devastated and alone. She found herself unable to cope with the grief, and her life began to unravel. She started drinking too much, making poor choices, and pushing away the people who loved her. One of those people was her longtime friend, Charlie. They had known each other since they were kids and had always been there for each other. But when Maggie's behavior became erratic, Charlie couldn't take it anymore. He told her that he couldn't be around her until she got her act together. Maggie was hurt and angry. How could Charlie abandon her when she needed him the most? She struggled with the idea of forgiving him and moving on. Months went by, and Maggie slowly began to rebuild her life. She stopped drinking, got a new job, and started seeing a therapist. But the one thing that still haunted her was her relationship with Charlie. One day, she ran into him at a coffee shop. They awkwardly exchanged pleasantries, and Maggie felt the weight of their unresolved issues hanging over them. She couldn't take it anymore. She asked Charlie to sit down with her and talk things out. At first, he was hesitant, but eventually, he agreed. They talked for hours, hashing out all the hurt and anger they had been carrying for months. In the end, they both realized that forgiveness was the only way forward. They both had made mistakes, and they both needed to own up to them. Maggie forgave Charlie for walking away when she needed him, and he forgave her for the hurtful things she had said in the heat of the moment. As they hugged goodbye, Maggie felt a sense of peace wash over her. Forgiveness wasn't easy, but it was worth it. She knew that her journey wasn't over, but she also knew that she had the strength to face whatever came her way. Chapter 4. Meet Claire, a young woman who has had her fair share of struggles in life. From a young age, she was diagnosed with a chronic illness that caused her a great deal of pain and discomfort. As she grew older, she found it difficult to maintain friendships because of her condition. And as if that wasn't enough, she also had a difficult relationship with her parents. Despite all of this, Claire refused to give up. She kept fighting, even on her darkest days. And then, just when she thought things couldn't get any worse, she was diagnosed with cancer. At first, she was devastated. She couldn't believe that she was being dealt yet another blow. But as she began treatment, she realized that she had more strength than she ever thought possible. She endured the pain, the nausea, and the fatigue, and emerged on the other side a stronger person. Through it all, she wrote to Strayed, seeking advice and guidance on how to keep going. And through it all, Strayed reminded her of the resilience that she had within her. As she recovered from cancer, Claire began to see the world in a new light. She realized that her illness had given her a perspective that few people had. She saw beauty in the small things and was grateful for every day that she woke up. But even with this newfound appreciation for life, Claire still struggled with forgiveness. She couldn't forgive her parents for their lack of support during her illness, and she couldn't forgive herself for feeling angry and resentful. It wasn't until she read a letter from a transgender male who had been rejected by their parents that she began to see forgiveness in a new light. She realized that holding on to anger and resentment was only hurting herself, and that forgiveness was a way to set herself free. So she made the difficult decision to reach out to her parents and try to repair their relationship. And though it wasn't easy, she found that forgiveness was the key to her own happiness and resilience. Through it all, Claire learned that resilience isn't just about enduring pain and hardship. It's also about being able to forgive, to accept, and to grow. And with these tools in her arsenal, she knew that she could face anything that life threw her way. Summary. As the sun set on the small town of Millfield, Sarah sat on her front porch, feeling defeated. She had just lost her job, and with it, her sense of purpose. She couldn't help but feel like life was constantly throwing obstacles at her, and she was getting tired of trying to find a way around them. Just then, a butterfly flew by, its wings glistening in the golden light of the setting sun. Sarah watched in awe as it flitted from flower to flower, drinking in their nectar. It was such a small, beautiful thing, but it brought a smile to her face. As she sat there, watching the butterfly, Sarah realized that there were many tiny beautiful things in life that she had been taking for granted. The smell of freshly baked bread, the sound of a baby's laughter, the feeling of sand between her toes at the beach. These were all things that she could appreciate, even in the midst of her struggles. Sarah decided to take a walk around town, to clear her head and appreciate the beauty around her. As she walked, she noticed the small things that she had overlooked before. The way the leaves rustled in the wind, the sound of a distant train, the laughter of children playing in the park. By the time she got back to her porch, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose. She realized that, while life may throw obstacles her way, she could still find joy in the small things. She could learn to love, accept, and forgive, not just others, but also herself. And despite what she might feel is dragging her down, she could find a way to continue on, one tiny beautiful thing at a time. Now, the insights and knowledge I gained from reading Tiny Beautiful Things were phenomenal. I highly recommend it. Thank you for taking the time to watch, and if you found value in this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more great content. Trust me, you won't regret it.